Hello, leader. I want to welcome you to the next session in the series of What Does It Mean to Be a Leader? This is session number 4. And as you'll recall, we've been following the life of David and looking at his life of what does it mean to be a leader. The first thing we noticed is that everyone is called to be a leader. And it's going to look different. It's going to feel different for every person, but you are called to be a leader. So don't be overwhelmed. And that can be so overwhelming to be a leader, but don't be overwhelmed. You're called to be a leader. The second thing is that if you're a leader, you have followers. And if you have followers, you're taking them somewhere. So where are you taking your followers? As a Connect Group leader, we know that we want to take people into life connections, and we want to take them into life connections that are ready to multiply, go beyond what we're seeing right now. So we want to take our followers somewhere, but then the third thing that we talked about last session is we want to lead with humility, and the best leaders know how to follow. Well, today I want to look at a story from 1 Samuel 30 where David has been out and he's been protecting these cities in Judah, and he comes back to his camp and he finds that his families and his stuff has been taken. An Amalekite group has come and raided their camp, and well, David's men are understandably upset, and they are actually ready to kill David. David figures out how to defuse the situation, and they take off to go get their families and get their stuff back. About halfway through, some of the men are just worn out. They can't go any further, and so 200 men stay behind and 400 men go on. They are able to regain their families, and not only do they regain their families, but they get all the stuff and more. They get a bounty of things. They get a war booty. Well, the 400 men who actually gain that stuff, they understandably don't want to share. But David shows something that Jesus taught about thousands of years later, and that's grace. And you might remember the story in Matthew 18 where Jesus talks about a man who has $1 million debt, and it's forgiven by the king, but he's unwilling to forgive someone a debt that somebody has to him for $100. Well, Jesus talks there about grace, and David shows grace to these 200 men. And we need to show grace to those who are following us, those who we're leading. And grace is going to look different in every situation. But I want to share with you a few things that grace means. Grace means that we are going to speak truth in love. And that can be really tough, isn't it? Not just to speak truth, but speak truth in love. But that's not what grace is all the time. Sometimes grace is allowing God to shine his light into dark places, and we're just praying. Sometimes grace is walking and showing what a healthy Christian walk looks like. Sometimes grace is forgiveness. Sometimes grace is patience. But I want to tell you what grace always is as a leader. Grace is walking alongside the ones we're leading. And that's what David did. He grieved as his men were grieving, he grieved with them. Jesus, he experienced pain as we experience pain. He walks alongside with us. As a leader, will you choose to walk alongside those who you're leading? Will you give grace? Will you walk alongside with them? And so think about that in your life. What does that mean in your small group, in your family, at work, at school, wherever that might be for you? Will you walk alongside? Will you show grace? Well, I want to thank you again for tuning in and being a part of these leadership series. Look forward to the next one. It's going to be our last in this series, and then we'll start a brand new one. Thanks again for being a part, and I'll see you next time.